with the news of our Special Booster 2.0, as well as BT 18 and 19 having shared support. I thought it was about time that I bring you some of the new support or decks that we're probably going to be receiving in the version 2.0. Now, I'm not actually sure that I need to check out 2.0 if it's going to be one big amalgamated set between BT 18 and 19, or are we getting two halves of it, like a 2.5. I think it's just going to be one big set between the two core sets. So there is a lot of cards that are probably going to be available. And from the packaging I've already seen, we do know that we're getting the Millenniummon support probably earlier than we probably would have when it comes to the iteration of like BT19. So let's talk about the Millenniummon strategy and what we're going to be looking at today. But as you guys can tell, remember to always go ahead and accelerate the subs. It does help out, as it's the only favor I'll ask of you. It's a little step for you and a big step for all of us, so it does help out. And just remember, when you are part of the ad army and on What's the Scoop, you get a first look, but so do I, as I get to review all these interesting cards, as you get a lot of information for it. Now, since we're actually looking at two sets, we have technically two waves of support here for the same strategy, and thankfully, we actually have a lot of the missing support that is from BT19 for the strategy, as I did think with only one wave, and maybe they were going to give some top end that this deck couldn't function properly, but thankfully they decided to go in, give a lot more support, and this deck definitely is starting to shape up into a very interesting strategy. It carries with it basically every single thing from level 3s all the way to 4s, 5s, 6s, and our 7s, which we actually have 3 of, which is pretty impressive, and we have a brand new option as well. So starting off, I'm actually going to start with one of the cards I don't necessarily loop into this strategy, but that's just because it's not specifically support, but I think it is. That being the brand new Pagumon that'll be coming out of BT19, but it'll most likely be in Special Booster 2.0, as it reads as follows. On deletion, if deleted, other than in battle, return one level 3 purple Digimon card from your trash to the hand. Really quickly, the only reason I am talking about this card is that both the Gazimon and the Gizamon both require to be Digivolving on top of a Pagumon for a cost of 0, so just letting you know that's probably the reason why I think this is support, but it could not be. So starting off, we actually have the card out of BT18 being the brand new Gazimon here. This Gazimon is a dual color, as it reads as follows. It can Digivolve on top of Pagumon for a cost of 0, and then on play, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. It add one card with Millenniummon in its name, and one card with the Composite or Wicked God trait among them to the hand. You return the rest to the deck bottom otherwise, and for its inheritable, it gives you Retaliation, and this is our first dual color Gazimon, so really interesting here. Moving into the brand new Gizamon, which will be released in, I believe, Special Booster 2.0, but also this is from BT19. It reads as follows, that very similarly, it can Digivolve on top of Pagumon for a cost of 0. Then on play, by trashing one card with the Composite or Wicked God trait in your hand, you get to draw 2 cards, and for its inheritable, it gives the Digimon blocker. So very good. Moving on to our new champions, we have first the BT18 Deltamon here. So Deltamon can Digivolve on top of either Gazimon or Gizamon for a cost of 2, and it carries Raid as its main effect. Then on play and when Digivolving, by trashing one card in your hand, you return one card with the Composite or Wicked God trait from your trash to the hand, and for its inheritable, it carries Retaliation as well, so very unique. Looking now at the BT19 specific Deltamon, it also can Digivolve on top of Gizamon or Gazimon for a cost of 2. It is purple-black. And then on play or when Digivolving or on deletion, by trashing one card in your hand, delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. This one carries blocker as its inheritable. Moving into the new Kimeramons here. First, we have BT18's Kimeramon here, which can Digivolve on top of any level 4 with composite traits for a cost of 3. And then when Digivolving and or when attacking, by deleting one of your Digimon, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP. Then on deletion, one of your Machinedramon and one Kimeramon in the trash may DNA Digivolve into Millenniummon in the hand. For its inheritable, it carries security attack +1, so very solid. Moving into the BT19 specific Kimeramon, it is also a purple-red, being able to Digivolve on top of any level 4 composite for a cost of 3. Then on play or when Digivolving, by deleting one of your Digimon, you did delete one of your opponent's level 3, one of their level 4, and one of their level 5 Digimon. Then on deletion, by deleting one of your level 4 or lower purple or red Digimon, you may play one Machinedramon from your trash without paying the cost. This one can also carry the Digicrossing ability, which allows it to Digicross -1 from 3 level 4 composite trait Digimon cards with different card numbers, effectively meaning if you have 3 composite Deltamon, as long as they're not the same Deltamon, you can go ahead and do that, which is very interesting. I think it's the first number card different Digimon. And then it's inheritable as well as the counterpart it had from BT18. It carries a Carry Attack +1. So that is actually amazing. Looking at the brand new Machinedramons for this line, let's first look at BT18s here, which is a purple-black Machinedramon that can Digivolve on top of any level 5 with the composite trait for a cost of 3. Then when this card would be played, by deleting one of your Digimon with the composite trait, you can reduce its play cost by 4. On play and when Digivolving, you get to Digivolve one of your, or Digivolve one on all of your opponent's Digimon. Then on deletion, one of your Kimeramon and Machinedramon in the trash may DNA Digivolve into Millenniummon in the hand. As a trait, this card is always treated as having the composite trait, very unique. And then for its inheritable, during the opponent's turn, once per turn, when any of your opponent's Digimon attack, you may change the attack target to one of your Digimon with the composite or Wicked God trait. So very interesting here. Moving into the BT19 Machinedramon, I'm actually a very big fan of its artwork. I like how that looks. It's on play and when Digivolving lets you delete one level 5 or lower Digimon. Then on deletion, you may play one level 5 or lower Digimon card with the Cyborg or composite trait from your trash without paying the cost. Additionally, its rule is also treated as having the composite trait, and it does carry Digicross as well, allowing it to subtract 1 from its or reducing the play cost by having 5 level 5 or lower Cyborg / composite trait Digimon cards with different card numbers. I will explain that a bit later, but very similar to Kimeramon. Additionally, in its inheritable, during the opponent's turn, once per turn, when any of your opponent's Digimon attack, you may change the attack target to one of your Digimon with the composite or Wicked God trait, so mirrors the other Machinedramon. Moving into the first of many, we actually have Moon Millenniummon. I'm going in order of the way the forms work, not the order of how they're coming, just because that's how I like to do it. But the point is here, you get Moon Millenniummon here, is that you're going to be the first level 7. You can Digivolve on top of Millenniummon for a cost of 2. Then on player, when Digivolving, your opponent's trashes cards in their hand until they have 5 left. For every 2 this effect trashed, delete one of your opponent's tamers. Then all turns, when this Digimon would leave the battle area, by deleting one of your composite trait Digimon, it doesn't leave. Then all turns, once per turn, when other Digimon or tamers are deleted, trash your opponent's top security card. Moving into the titular card of the archetype, we have Millenniummon here. This one is from BT18. It can DNA Digivolve from Kimeramon and Machinedramon for a cost of 0. Then on play and or when Digivolving, you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon. Then if DNA Digivolving, by returning one of each Digimon card with different levels from your opponent's trash to the top of the deck, you gain 1 memory for each card returned. On deletion, by returning 1 Kimeramon and 1 Machinedramon from your trash to the bottom of the deck, you may play 1 Millenniummon from your trash without paying the cost. This also has a Digicrossing requirement, as well as where you can subtract 2 from its play cost by placing Kimeramon and Machinedramon immediately, allowing you to play it for a cost of 10. Moving on to the final form of Millenniummon, we have Zed Millenniummon. Zed Millenniummon can Digivolve on top of Moon Millenniummon for a cost of 2. It also is a tricolor card, which is very appropriate for how powerful it is. And additionally, it carries the Overclock ability, which has only been seen, I think, on Sendromon so far. And it focuses on using the composite trait, which at the end of your turn, by deleting one of your tokens or other composite trait Digimon, this Digimon attacks a player without suspending. So on player, when Digivolving, when attacking, by returning 1 Digimon card from your opponent's trash to the top of the deck, return 1 of their Digimon to the bottom of the deck. All turns, when this Digimon with no Digievolution cards can't suspend and isn't affected by your opponent's effects. I'll get into this in a minute. Moving into the final card for this archetype support, we have the option card here, as this is the Wicked God Descent. So starting off for its main effect, you may play one composite trait Digimon card from your trash with the play cost reduced by 4. Then you place this card in the battle area. All turns when any of your Digimon with Millenniummon in their names would leave the battle area for its delay, you may play one Wicked God trait Digimon card with a play cost 1 higher than that Digimon from your hand or trash without paying the cost. For its security, you simply play this card in the battle area. So this is interesting, and this is all the support for Millenniummon, at least of currently. The strategy's been revamped. I was kind of wondering when they would launch this strategy again, because Millenniummon's actually been a level 7 that's existed for a very long time, and after its appearance in the 2020 anime, it was pretty clear that this Digimon was going to be receiving a lot more love, and it has to a degree, but I'm very glad they finally made it a proper archetype in the Digimon card game. It's just one of those archetypes I think definitely needed it. So starting off, let's look at what we've got. I think the interesting thing about this deck is that I like that it has a lot of different amalgamations of different effects, as well as being able to tie in, I think, a lot of what Digimon has become. So also another thing too, since Millenniummon had never really seen any support outside of its original printing of the first Millenniummon, one thing that's amazing about this is that they really had a lot to work with the deck. They could have made it do anything, be anything it wanted to, and that's exactly what I think they went for here. Having Gazimon and Gizamon, as well as the whole line of Digimon work towards giving us Millenniummon, explain like a pseudo lore thing that most people wanted to know is how you get to Millenniummon, because you do have to have Deltamon first. I really like this addition to kind of explaining that Deltamon is like some type of amalgamation Digimon forced between Gazimon and Gizamon, and then eventually both of them become Kimeramons, or a Kimeramon, and one of them becomes maybe the Machinedramon from a Kimeramon, and they then DNA digivolve, allowing them to kind of come together into the amalgamation, which is Millenniummon. So I do love that lore-wise. But when it comes to effect-wise and how this deck plays, I think the crazy thing about this deck is that it's actually very straightforward for what it is. And what I mean by this is that since we have received the composite Deltamon that has been around, I think, since BT, I want to say BT7 as a promo, because I think I still have it somewhere in my collection, but I remember that card when it first came out. People were playing, I think, in Black War Greymon, because it reduces the color cost of like a dual color card, but it also reduced the cost for composite Digimon. But there were no composite Digimon at that time, really, so that was really fantastic that that effect makes sense now, and they really did work with what they had. I think the cool thing about this new support is that all of it, like I said, makes sense. You're trying to build your stacks. You're also trying to effectively get in some damage, as well as trying to force out your opponent's plays. I also like the fact that this deck now has access to lots of different interactions and plays. There's something like the Machinedramon and the Kimeramon that can Digicross. It really does allow the deck to kind of accelerate its pacing. So as a big stack deck that this could have been, the deck can also quickly kind of try to ramp up and force the opponent on the backseat quickly, and it basically pushes them back. So looking at some of the cards I want to really just talk about quick, both of the Machinedramons are unique. I think the one that I like the most about both of them is that both indirectly supports their own deck with their cyborg typing, but they also support the strategy really well. I like the fact that they decided to make Machinedramon a composite type as well, because it just helps out a lot by making the strategy a bit easier through its Digi-crossing requirements, and it does allow you to kind of build your stacks, a bit faster. I do also enjoy the fact that we have DNA in this line as well, thanks to, it's Millenniummon obviously being a DNA Digi-evolution between Machinedramon and Kimeramon. I love that that was introduced, because they could have just skipped it over, but they chose not to. And if I'm correct, I could be wrong, but I might be correct here, I think Millenniummon is the first DNA Digi-evolution Digimon that also has a Digi-crossing requirement. I could be wrong, but I think it's the first, which is just really cool to me. Having multiple mechanics in a single boss Digimon really does make a lot of sense, and it really works for this strategy well. Additionally, when looking at Moon Millenniummon, Z Millenniummon, and the new Millenniummon, The one thing I like the most about them is the synergy between each other, which makes a lot of sense. It's clear here that you really want to ramp into something like the normal Millenniummon, have that one swing to do lots of damage with either of the Kimeramons underneath it, because it will most likely have security attack +1, do lots of damage, mess with your opponent, gain back memory, and then after a certain point, you basically slide Digivolve in a way. You're going to Digivolve the Millenniummon into the Moon Millenniummon on top, so you use its effect to effectively try to clear out your opponent's fields, which makes a lot of sense, and then it basically sticks to the field until your next turn. But if it does, die, in a sense, and you're able to kind of get it to go, you then have cards like the Wicked God Descends to kind of deal with that issue, to allow you to go into the Zed Millenniummon if you have it in your hand. So the combos are all kind of lined up. But additionally, Zed Millenniummon is pretty insane for multiple reasons, but the biggest one I see is that Zed Millenniummon's overclock ability makes a lot of sense, because if this Digimon comes out from the Wicked God Descends, it won't have any Digi-Evolution material, so with nothing underneath it, you need a way to attack, and so by having multiple Digimon on the field, you can now let Zed Millenniummon attack through the use of overclock, which is actually pretty interesting, I think, because it does allow you to kind of just pressure your opponent down as quickly as possible. I do think that the only effect I wish was just a little bit stronger on these is definitely Zed Millenniummon's Tamer removal. Moon Millenniummon's Tamer removal. I like it. I just wish there was a little bit more of it, maybe, because I think this could really choke decks out if you get this combo going, and then Moon Millenniummon hits the field, they trash cards, and then all of a sudden you start getting rid of their Tamers really quickly. That really does hurt, because this one could kind of mass board an opponent if they're not prepared. Like, say they have 3 Tamers out and they have like 8 cards in their hand, you're basically making them get rid of 3, you're getting rid of all their Tamers. That's just insane, in my opinion. Ultimately, I think this deck is positioned really well. I like that also the Machinedramons can be used for their cyborg decks. So, keep that in mind if you're a Machinedramon stand. It doesn't bother me. Basically, I really like this strategy. There's not really much to talk about besides giving it a shot, because this deck has lots of different effects. It has lots of different, styles. So you really get to focus on what you kind of want to design it around. The only cards I think you need directly to support the strategy is you're going to need the promo Deltamon. I think without it, this deck doesn't function as well as it could, just because you're going to be hard playing more, and with that card you can Digivolve a little bit more reliably. Obviously throw in, I would think, the purple Gizamon that's from the Leviamon strategy, because it's the only other Gizamon I think you could throw in if you want to do that. But if you want to play Gazimon, throw in Gazimon, because there's a lot of purple Gazimons. So honestly, this deck is set up really well. I don't know how good it will be in the meta, I'm not gonna lie. I think this deck is solid, but I do think it's still a bit slow is the only issue I think this deck has. It is a bit slow. It can ramp really quick, but I can see why this strategy probably might not be looked at by some, because it is just a bit slow, I think. There's a lot of decks that can kind of outpace this strategy, but I think what this deck does well is that if it starts to snowball, and it'll snowball really fast, and also if your opponent doesn't know what the cards do, which, funny enough, this reminds me of a Yu-Gi-Oh thing, this deck might become one of those obscure strategies that people just don't know how to play against as well, because they may be looking at it, but they may not be playing it. So this deck really does probably take an advantage of a really good pilot. So if you're trying to test this out, I would say go for it, because you might really enjoy what this deck does, and then your opponents just might not be prepared, because if you read all these effects from Zed, Moon, normal Millenniummon, all the different Kimeramons as well as Machinedramon, if your opponent doesn't know what this deck does, they're going to have a tough time trying to deal with it, because this deck can just kind of maneuver around a lot of plays. But pretty much that's all I've got for you guys today. I'm so glad I was able to do this What's the Scoop for Millenniummon. Millenniummon's one of my favorite indirect Digimon, thanks to its lore, and if you ever watched on my series some of my old videos on my What If stuff, they focused around Millenniummon, because I just think he's such a cool Digimon. But pretty much that's all I've got for you guys today, and as always, this has been Brad from the Ad Army signing off, and for all of you out there, to sign on.